Somewhere in your institution, there is a thick binder of policies and procedures. It describes how the bank operates. And somewhere else, in query logs, in case files, in exception queues, is how the bank actually operates. Those two are not the same document. Your policy documents describe how the bank believes it operates. Your query logs and your case histories show how it actually does. Most of the time, nobody has compared the two. The binder was written once and went stale. The work moved on without it. Context discovery is the discipline of closing that gap, of reverse engineering, how the institution really runs, from the records it already keeps. And the first thing you learn is uncomfortable. A lot of how your bank works was never written down at all. Quick recap, then we begin. Across the last 7 episodes, we made the case. The model isn't the constraint. Governed, compounding institutional knowledge is. A context graph is the mechanism that holds it. Now we build it. The build has 5 capabilities that form one control loop: discover, develop, learn, activate, all wrapped by govern and observe. This episode is the first stage, discover. Everything downstream depends on what we surface here. So where does discovery look? Not at the binder. At the exhaust the institution already produces every day. Systems of record, the authoritative ledgers, the core platforms, the golden sources of what is true. Query history. Every time someone pulled a number, the filters and joins they used are a record of what that number meant to them in practice. Case management logs. The step-by-step trail of how real cases were actually worked and closed. And exception queues. The things that fell outside the documented path. Exceptions are where the undocumented procedure lives. None of this is new data. It is the bank's own behavior, written down by its own systems. Discovery just reads it. Here's where the AI earns its keep. Reading query logs at scale is exactly the kind of heavy lifting a person can't do by hand. Take our running example, committed exposure. Back in episode 6, we warned that 2 divisions can compute the same metric differently and not know it, a confidently inconsistent figure that lands in a board report. In that episode, the conflict was the problem. Here, finding it is the win. The AI reads Treasury's queries and Finance's queries, and it surfaces the divergence, same name, 2 different filters, 2 different numbers. Notice what the AI did and did not do. It did not decide which definition is correct. It detected the conflict and produced a candidate finding for someone accountable to resolve. That distinction is the whole episode. Same move, applied to a procedure. Our second running example is the anti-money laundering alert disposition workflow, how an analyst decides whether a flagged transaction is a false alarm or something to escalate. We met it in episode 2 as a piece of expertise, the kind that lives in long-tenured heads and stale runbooks. The documented version, if it exists, is thin. So the AI reads the case histories, hundreds of completed dispositions, and reconstructs the workflow people actually follow, the checks they run, the branches they take, the steps the runbook never mentioned. The output is a map of the de facto procedure, richer than the binder, grounded in real work, and, again, a candidate, not yet the official procedure. Step back to the general toolkit. For the procedures that were never written down, 3 durable methods. 1. Extract candidate procedures from completed work. What people actually did, recovered from the record of having done it. 2. Build process maps from event logs. This is process mining. The timestamps in your systems trace the real path a case took, start to finish. 3. Structured interviews with subject matter experts. For the judgment that leaves no log, you still ask the people who hold it, deliberately, not casually. Different inputs, one output, candidates. Which brings us to the constraint that governs all of this. Here is the constraint that makes discovery safe instead of dangerous. Everything discovery produces is a candidate, not canon. A candidate is something the AI surfaced from the evidence. It is plausible, it is grounded, it is not yet true in the eyes of the institution. Canon is what an accountable owner has looked at, challenged, and stood behind. The two are not the same, and treating a candidate as canon is how you industrialize a wrong answer. Who adjudicates? The first line of defense, the business owners who actually run the process and are accountable for it. The AI proposes, they dispose. That handoff has a name in this series, and it gets a stamp. This is the stamp you'll see on every capability in this act, so let's introduce it properly. AI drafts, humans approve. In Discovery, the AI does the drafting, and it does enormous amounts of it. Reading logs, detecting conflicts, reconstructing workflows. Tireless, fast, at a scale no team could match. But it does not approve its own output. A human with accountability for that process reviews the candidate, challenges it, and decides. This is effective challenge, the same principle your model risk function already lives by. Approval is what turns a candidate into canon. No stamp, no canon. If this pattern feels familiar, it should. You already run a discipline shape exactly like it, the Risk and Control Self-Assessment, the RCSA. An RCSA surfaces the controls a business relies on so they can be validated, tested, challenged, rated. It does not declare them effective on site just because someone listed them. Discovery is the same move for context. It surfaces definitions and procedures as candidates for validation, never as facts because the AI proposed them. And it sets up the questions an examiner will ask of anything you put in production. Who approved this? What's its lineage? What depends on it? When was it last reviewed? Now, the misconception this episode exists to kill. It goes like this. We pointed AI at our systems. It auto-documented our processes. That's the finished product. Discovery is done. No. What Discovery produced is a pile of candidates. Plausible, grounded, and entirely unadjudicated. Ship them unchallenged and you haven't documented the bank. You've published unverified claims at scale. Discovery's job is not to be the finished product. Its job is to feed the next stage with high-quality candidates. The output of Discovery is the input to a life cycle. The auto-documentation is the easy part. The governance is the product. So here's where we are in the loop. Discover has done its work. It captured what was never written down and produced candidates. Definitions, procedures, conflicts, all clearly labeled as not yet canon. Those candidates don't sit in a pile. They flow into the next capability, a life cycle that drafts, tests, reviews, approves, and one day retires each one, the exact discipline you give code and models. Next episode, we follow one candidate into that life cycle and find out why changing a single definition is never just an edit. Discovery found what's real. Next, we govern it. I'll see you there.